Good morning, everybody, and thanks for waking up from your ethylic deliriums to listen to my non-ethylic delirium. So, I will speak about Document Liberation Project and what we are trying to do. I was supposed to present it with my imaginary friend who didn't come, so I will present it alone. So, first I will speak about the project. The Document Liberation Project is the second official project of the Document Foundation. First was, who knows what was the first project of the Document Foundation? Don't know? Who knows? He said the bad keyword, so everything discharges that side. Okay, so it was LibreOffice, so Document Liberation is the second project. It was launched officially on April 2nd at 11 UTC. April 2nd, we were already on the 1st April, but we didn't want to be considered as a bad joke, so we launched on April 2nd during the... and in the same day we gave first talk presenting the project at the Librographic meeting 2014 in Leipzig in Germany. And how this thing all came to be. From the beginning of LibreOffice, there was a group of engineers that were working on file formats, and we wrote several things. During the Google Summer of Code, we had talented students, Ili Mekadam, who worked on Visio file format, and we produced LibVisio. That was basically something that the ecosystem was extremely happy about, because Visio binary files were nothing was able to open it. And we acquired certain competencies in workflow that we tested then during the year 2012 by writing Corel Draw import filter. And then in 2012 we did also during Google Summer of Code Microsoft Publisher import filter, and after that the gates of heaven opened and poured the blessings on us. And now we have about a dozen of libraries, and there are more to come. The fact was that from the very beginning we were feeling that something bigger than LibreOffice itself was happening with these file formats. How we knew about it is that people were attending our talks. Normally, attendance of talks is extremely sparse, and we still had attendance. And people came to us and they were interested in it, and we were also approached by other projects that were interested in our libraries. And that was actually a reason why we from the beginning started to do it as standalone libraries, so that it can be reused. And soon, several projects like Inkscape, Calibra, Strba, or even some commercial products that run actually on iOS were contacting us, and they were integrating our libraries. And then we started to conceptualize it a bit like a service of LibreOffice community to the wide free and open source world, because we receive LibreOffice uses a lot of external libraries. LibreOffice profits from our competencies that come from the wider FOSS world, and we were considering that it was just proper to give something back. Now, what this project is all about. I will present you the philosophy in a few points. First, we believe that documents and their content belong to their creator, not to software vendors. It's like if you look at a painting, and the painting is done by an author using oil paint on a maybe cannabis canvas or whichever cotton canvas. The painting is the author's painting. It's not because he bought from this guy the canvas that the guy owns the painting. That's our philosophy. In the software world, it's not as obvious as that to many software vendors. So, we believe also that access to content you own should not be hindered by the fact that application that created is not maintained anymore, or that the application does not work on a particular operating system that you use. It happens quite often that if you are as young as me, you have files on your floppies, some of them maybe even 8-inch floppies, that you will not be able to open because it was created by something that doesn't run on anything that exists now. And we found that that was not really something normal, and we wanted to fight against it. And also we believe that the use of truly open and free standards for encoding digital content is the only long-term guarantee that the user's digital content will never be beholden to a single vendor. It means that in ideal world, everything will be a true and open source standard. But as many of you know, we are not living in an ideal world. And the majority of documents are in file formats that are far from being standards and far from being true and open. And that's why we position ourselves in this period that we consider transitory. We believe that during this transitory period, before the humanity realizes that ODF is the solution for all the misery of the world, we believe that the implementation of free and open source software that can read proprietary file formats is the best solution to escape vendor lock during the transition period. Because if you have open source implementation that can read it, you can port it to your system, you can modify it, you can improve it. And there is a guarantee that it will run for a certain time. So, from these philosophical points comes our mission. And our mission is first to try to understand the structure and details of proprietary undocumented file formats. Some people would call this reverse engineering, but we are not necessarily trying to understand everything about the file format. We are trying to extract information from there. Sometimes the applications that keep data that is useful for them only, and we don't care about them. We care only, we try to see the structure of the document, we try to see the information that we actually want to extract where it is, and other junk, we just leave it where it is, and we bother about it only when we need it. So, and after we got some knowledge about the structure, we try to implement free and open source software parsers. And the libraries that I mentioned in the introduction, they are such parsers. They are libraries that parse the document, that use some APIs to represent the content, and that's it. And our other mission is also to use our existing framework to encode this data in a truly open and free standard file format that everybody knows that the only good, only wonderful, only marvelous is open document file format. If you don't know that, you come to me and I will use my baseball bat to beat it into your head. Now, this was to understand for everybody. Now, those of you who have no interest in technical things, you can go, and I'm going to give you some think about our tooling. So we have basically two introspection tools. One is called Toy. It's because in the beginning it was a toy to introspect all the files, but as with all temporary solutions, it became permanent solution, it extended itself. It can basically introspect all our file formats, and because our mission was never produce a written documentation. Because written documentation, unless you are a journalist, is a waste of time. Because you don't want to explain how the thing works, you want to extract data from the thing. So we basically, in this introspection tool, you have the document, you can see the structure of the document, and you can see a data that you need. Other data you will see just hexadecimal. Then we have something that is called parser. It's a hexadecimal editor on steroids, basically. You can make line lengths different. You can script it so that you say, okay, let's try if in this file from this offset, every 6 bytes, there is some pattern. And you can script it, and it will make for you the lines, and you can see whether there is some pattern. And also what it has, I didn't write there because I forgot, it has something that is very nifty. You can do binary diffs on this. So for example, when you have an old file format and you want to see how the new file format evolve, you take a chunk and you put it in 2 different windows of the editor, and you can see. So for example, we realized that when we were supporting the color row 17, we realized that certain text functions changed. We just put one version, the 16 version and the 17 version together, and we saw immediately what changed, and we were able to implement the 17 parser in something like 30 minutes. So now, this is to understand the file format. Now to write the filters and to write the parsers, we have a software framework. We call it librevenge. It's nothing, we don't want to revenge on anybody, because I was actually hearing people, oh, it is very hostile, this librevenge thing. It's nothing about revenge, as revenging on your wife because she didn't cook well. It means it's coming from reverse engineering, and it's just our game of the worlds. It's it's as stupid as GNU is not Unix, so it's just insider joke that became a name of the library. So this library has the document models. It has the APIs to store, to pass document model for the difference, for spreadsheets, for drawings, for presentations, for text documents. Then there is another library that is called librevenge that takes these APIs from librevenge and can generate from them open documents. And then you have the parser libraries that actually use these APIs and this library to parse file formats, process the information, and push it into the document model. If you are interested how the document model looks, I can say after, but it's too. We have several pure virtual interfaces. We do callback functions, and then that's how we represent it. And then we have writer perfect, that is command line tool that actually glues it all together, and you can generate ODF files from this. But writer perfect, the standalone tools, you don't need it. For example, LibreOffice. LibreOffice uses librevenge, uses librevenge, and it has own glue inside. Now, librevenge has also a stream interface that we implement, has different implementation all over the projects that use us. And it's also a virtual interface that has some read functions, some skip functions, some seek functions, some test for an extraction of structured of substreams from structured storages, and we have some implementation that are in librevenge stream library, but LibreOffice doesn't need to use that and doesn't actually use it. As ABWord doesn't use this, it only implements its own stream implement. But we have RVNG is from the revenge file stream that is an implementation that uses file name. You just call the file by name, and that's the and it does it implements all this virtual interface. Then we have string stream. It takes a buffer of data and takes it like the input file. And then we have specific things for Mac and for Keynote presentations and all other similar things. That because in Mac you can consider a directory as being a file, a structured file. So we have something that we call RVNG directory stream, and it accesses a directory like if it was a structured file. The advantage of this is that OLE2 or zip or the directory streams, they are handled transparently. You don't need to know this is a zip, this is OLE2. You just have to know whether it's structured and whether you can extract this stream from it. So, And it's also good for us because it gives the responsibility to the implementers of this interface to handle that transparently on themselves, so we don't have to bother so much. Then we have also RVNG generators that they are used for implementation of different of these interfaces. Like for example, if you want to convert a spreadsheet in CSV, you don't need extremely complicated generators like for ODF. So it's included in the librevenge and you can do it. So then we have those row generators that we use for regression testing, because row generator is basically putting out callback that was called and all parameters of this callback. So there is an exception. SVG generator for drawing was historically in the main libraries, and it started to be used as such. So this one is the only one that is in the main librevenge, because Inkscape was using us, and also we use it for preview images for certain graphics, where normally graphics sometimes we embed it as embedded ODF file, but not many applications out there that support text know how to handle the raw document. So we use SVG as a preview. Now libodfgen has, as you can see, 4 generator classes. One is for text document, another for graphics, for presentation, and for spreadsheets. And also has an abstract interface that receives the success messages to get the, because we don't want to serialize in some XML. We want the XML to be reusable by different projects. Some projects use XML strings, some projects like LibreOffice use actually success messages to feed XML content into LibreOffice. So we have an interface that can actually be, again, plugged in different ways. WriterPerfect, is a command line tool linking the components together. So it uses the librevenge stream because it's command line, and this is the implementation that we have that can be used from command line. It uses libodfgen, and it uses this array of parser libraries that we have. I didn't write all of them because there is no point to write all of them, but there are about 12, I think a dozen. And it can generate flat ODF or package zipped ODF. So it's useful if you need to bulk convert files. If you need to just open one file, there are filters for it. So advantage of the design is that the parser libraries are independent and self-contained. And it also makes much easier life of filter writers, because the parser library is concentrating on the internal structure of the file and doesn't have to bother about the output so much. It just calls the callbacks of some interface. So the input is a stream interface, output is some other interface, so you don't have to bother how the generators are implemented. You just do your parser and bother about how your file looks. So it avoids sucking in unrelated libraries. librevenge itself and libodf gen have only boost as build time dependency and not as runtime dependency. So they are libraries that basically can run on many systems, and it was like before, when Inkscape was using libvisio to import Visio document, it had to link libwpd, that is WordPerfect library, because that was the first library that had all the framework functions. And it's not necessary now, because librevenge is enough, and we don't have to bother about those libraries, unless the parser library uses something. The other library, like for example, WordPerfect parser is used by WordPerfect graphics parser, because texts in graphic files are stored as chunks of WordPerfect documents. So you don't want to redo the parser, so you cross-use them. But that is just internal implementation problem. And also this is considerably reducing our code duplication there is less risk of things that were happening in the past, that you had fixed the bug in one implementation and then the bug was there in other because you forgot to fix it in all places. And there is also a faster to start a library skeleton. If you are wanting to write a library, in my yesterday's talk about writing filters for LibreOffice, I actually gave an example how to generate. We have a script that generates a skeleton of the library that is empty, that doesn't do anything, but it can help because you can create your first code that is empty, but you can start to fill it with your information. And before, it was taking some time to actually create this skeleton. And now the good news for you all is that you can be part of this. It's a very exciting thing, and you even, you can be part of it. You don't need to be a technical guy, you can be whoever, you can be part of it, because we need everybody. We need code developers who would contribute to one of our existing libraries, or people who have a file format of bad teenage poetry on their hard disk and they want to read it. They can start a new one, and we are always happy to have a new library. But if you are not a techie in programming style, you can take Olatoy and you can start to see how the file format that you have on your hard disk looks like, and try to understand it. It needs certain bit of knowledge of Python, but it's very low-level Python. It's a Python that even me, I can understand, so it means it's very, very low level. Or, if even that is scaring you off, it can happen. My children, for example, they would be scared off by this thing. So, you can, and you own an application that generates those files. You can generate for us a lot of test document, and this test document of the real-life application are good for regression testing and also for understanding. Sometimes we need people who will do a document and save it. Then we'll modify something little in it and save it, and we need maybe thousands of this kind of document. If you are not techie guy, but you have that application, you can generate that for us and we will be happy. Now, what are the future formats to import? In Google Summer of Code 2014, we had a student that was working with PageMaker. It's in a nice stage, and it will be in LibreOffice 4.4, thanks to Google. It's just marketing plug because Google sponsored the guy. But surely it's not finished. You can't finish the library like this in 3 months. So you can contribute there, and that's the hottest thing that exists now. And then we have also several file formats where we already understand enough so that we can mentor someone who would like to implement a parser for it. They are upload numbers and pages, and Zoner Draw. It's some drawing application that David has on his heart. So if you want to work on it, if you are from Czech Republic or Slovakia and you know what Zoner Draw was, or if you are from another country that was using it, I don't know who else was using it, you can actually make a big difference by implementing this one. So that was my talk, and I thank you, and this is our Twitter handle. You can always follow us. We normally are extremely excited about the number of followers, so you can follow us from all your accounts. So no problem. And you can go to documentliberation.org, where there is all and even more from what I said. And you can ask questions if you want.
Just one question. Is there already import filter for EPS files?
EPS, this is...
Encryption,
yeah. The thing is encapsulated PostScript. No, there is none. But it would be easy to implement it using this framework. The only thing is the document liberation. We had actually some requests about this, but since EPS is reasonably documented, so we don't really go to that side. We will mentor gladly someone who wants to do it, but time is short and we are more interested on file formats that nobody ever understood how they look like. Because EPS, there is some documentation, we don't need to put our competencies into it. If someone wants, we can mentor the person, but it's more intellectually challenging for us to get something that is a black box.
Maybe just from the user perspective, I think it would be a high interest because all of the logos, or many of the logos are in EPS, so whenever I do some letter or some conference program in LibreOffice, then it's very practical, would be very practical to have the original.
As I said, I am able to mentor anybody who wants to work on it. I don't have, normally EPS is generated by Adobe Illustrator natively, and I don't have these Adobe products myself, and EPS is something that you can actually look into and see inside. So I'm really more than happy if someone says, I want to work on it, to go through the library with the guy, to help him with it, even to do some coding with him. But I don't want to start myself doing this coding because, as I said, time is short. If you see my incubator of projects to come, you would understand that there are many things that are in a stage of incubator. So I don't want to add something else into the stage of incubator, knowing that I would be the only one or David would be the only one working on it. So if someone is interested, we can get the person started, we can pat the person's back, love him a lot, and tweet about him, Facebook about him, Google Plus about him, and make him being famous. We can't make him rich. That's hard. We tried it with outsource and we didn't succeed. So, but we became famous. Yes.
Do you also have kind of focus to